Ideas that change the world don't need to be new every time. They just need to be true every time. Hey, I want to talk to you in this video about the pressure that you feel to say something new and original every time you preach, right? I felt that pressure. I mean, I've preached and spoken in public for almost 30 years. It's a pressure so many of us face. Well, I've got good news. You can take the pressure off, at least just a little bit. You see, one of the biggest myths about creativity is that the idea you share needs to be new every single time. You need new content, new angles, new insights. And while fresh ideas matter and while they have their place, the reality is the ideas that change the world don't need to be new every time, but they do need to be true every time. So I want to start unpacking this with a question. If you go to see your favorite artist, like your favorite band, what are you hoping for? Well, my guess is you want their greatest hits, right? Nobody wants to go to Taylor Swift and not hear Shake It Off or Blank Space, and you don't want to go to Luke Combs and not hear Fast Car. You see, songs define artists and they become anthems for millions of people. So imagine, Taylor standing on stage and going, they've heard Blank Space 1,000 times. I think I'm going to skip it tonight. You see, great art and great ideas are meant to be repeated. The same applies to you. If you've ever hesitated, and I've felt this pressure to reuse an old idea, I used that like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you're not alone. And a lot of leaders, a lot of communicators and creators worry that they're being repetitive or unoriginal. But here's the thing. The first time you shared that idea, not everybody heard it. Not everybody was there. People were away. People were on vacation. Secondly, even those who did hear it probably didn't fully absorb it. And most of them, even if they heard it and absorbed it, honestly, don't remember it. That's why repetition isn't just acceptable, it's kind of essential. When done well, reusing your old ideas doesn't feel stale, it feels intentional, and maybe it even feels energizing. So here's why you should reuse some of your old ideas. First, not everybody heard it the first time. Secondly, not everybody was there, and even the people who heard it don't remember it. So let's break those down a little bit. Here's why I think you should reuse some of your old ideas. Number one, not everybody heard it the first time, okay? No one's there every week, and the people who were there don't necessarily remember. Shockingly, there were some people in the room that weren't even listening, okay? Secondly, repetition builds trust. When you repeat your core ideas, you are reinforcing what you stand for. So think about the leaders you admire most. My guess is they're known for something, whether it's vulnerability, discipline, innovation, or generosity. Their message becomes synonymous with their name, and that consistency, even a repetition of message over time, helps people remember why what they say is important and why actually they matter to you. Okay, third thing. Truth deserves repetition. Most of us have a handful of core messages that define our lives and our work. Think of them maybe as the big themes of your leadership. If they matter that much, they're also worth repeating. These are the truths that people need to hear again and again because they shape how they think, they live, and lead. And that's true of the gospel, right? I mean, you can't be that super creative where you're not repeating certain key truths. You just have to do it. So another reason why you can reuse ideas is new contexts bring new energy. An old idea, something you taught a year ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, in a new context can feel like a revelation. So, for example, what once seemed obvious can become profound when circumstances shift. A story you told 2 years ago might suddenly feel urgent and relevant again today. And that is why reusing ideas isn't just recycling, it's also rediscovery. So, how do you reuse your old ideas without feeling stale, without boring yourself, right? Or feeling like you're just not coming up with anything creative. So here are a few strategies that will help. First, test the memory of your core team. I live and die by this as a public communicator. So here's the trick I use. I just ask my inner circle, okay? Often 2 or 3 people, the people who've been with me a long time. Hey, do you remember when I talked about blank? Now here's what's true. If they don't remember, Nobody's going to remember. Okay, it's a really quick reality check. If the people closest to you can't recall it, chances are it's pretty safe to bring it back. And even if they do remember, there's usually room to revisit it with new depth. Second thing you want to do is you want to refresh the wrapping. Reusing an old idea doesn't mean regurgitating it verbatim. Think of it like a gift. You can wrap it in different paper, tie it with a fresh bow, and whatever is inside might remain the same. So you can change details in the story. Don't lie, but you can tell it in more detail, or you can tell it from a different angle or with a different purpose. You can switch up an analogy, but keep, the core idea the same. Or you can change the format. You used to tell it as a story, now you tell it as bullet points or something like that. For example, an idea you shared in a keynote could become a blog post, then a podcast episode, then a tweet. You can just keep reusing things in different formats. Third thing you can do is you can anchor your idea to a current event. One of the best ways to breathe life into an old idea is to connect it to something that's happening in the moment. Maybe there's a trend or a crisis or something that's emerged in the last few years that feels especially timely. So when you tether your core message to what's unfolding in real time, it suddenly gains urgency and relevance. Another thing you can do is add a fresh layer of insight. So think about it this way. Each time you revisit an idea, bring something new to the table. Maybe it's a story you haven't told before, a new piece of research, or like it's an updated perspective you've gained since you first shared it. In other words, core idea is there, but you've grown and your growth shows. It's kind of like layering on a cake. You're building on what's already good, but making it richer and a little more satisfying. Another thing you can do is speak it with fresh energy. Now, no matter how brilliant your idea is, it's going to fall flat if you are bored with it. If you're like, here we are for the 75th time, okay, nobody's going to listen. If you're revisiting a concept and you think it needs to be repeated, just bring an energy to it. Pretend it's the first time you delivered the truth. Just drop it, okay? And people will catch your excitement. They're going to lean in, not because it's brand new, but because it feels alive. Another thing you can do is track what resonates. So pay attention to the moments when your ideas land with impact. Sometimes you're giving a message or you're giving a talk and you just know, wow, this really, and so often it's a surprise, right? It's like that really landed. Take note of that after you deliver it. So if a certain phrase, story, or principle consistently gets traction, make a mental note. These become your greatest hits, ideas worth repeating. Keep refining them and look for new ways to share them, but then you're on to something because it's really connected with people. So here's the risk. You got to risk, if you don't do this, of under communicating. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make isn't overusing their ideas, it's under communicating them. So what feels like redundancy to you, because you remember everything you ever said, for the most part, right, might be exactly what someone needs to hear. In fact, most people need to hear something multiple times before they truly internalize it. So think about your own journey. How many times did you need to hear a powerful truth before it finally clicked? Maybe for a long time you knew that you're not supposed to spend more money than you make, but you did it anyway. And then you heard it and you looked at your credit card bill and somehow the light went on, okay? From a communicator's perspective, repetition isn't a sign of laziness, it's a sign of leadership. See, here's what's true. Great leaders don't shy away from repeating themselves because this is what they know. An idea isn't successful when it's spoken. It's successful when it sticks. So go ahead. You got permission. Share your best ideas in fresh and creative ways again and again. Go ahead and tell that same story. Maybe not, 1 week after another, but you want to do it. You want to repeat it. You want to pull it out of the archive. Teach the same principles. Say it in new ways, but don't stop. Because the truth is, your greatest hits aren't old. Maybe they're just timeless. You see the shift there? Your job is to bring timeless truths to the environment you're preaching in. Preachers, I know how difficult it can be to keep your sermons feeling fresh and relevant. See, think about it this way. The truth is, your greatest hits aren't old. They're kind of timeless, right? They're timeless truths that you can speak into a given moment. And I know that can be really hard when you're a preacher. And I've got something I hope can help. To help, I've got a 10-step preaching cheat sheet. Now, after decades of communicating and preaching, I have simplified my sermon prep into a series of steps and some reminders that help me ensure my sermons are engaging, relevant, and memorable. And this is really the thing that will get you to present them in fresh ways. Because if you're just cutting and pasting, it's going to get a little bit boring. So I run you through a series of 10 simple prompts with very specific examples that you can use, well, starting as early as this Sunday. So if you're interested, if you're curious, you can use this every week. You can join over 30,000 leaders who are using it. You can transform your preaching by visiting preachingcheatsheet.com, and you'll get your copy absolutely free. That's just preachingcheatsheet.com, and you can download your copy of the Preaching Cheat Sheet, well, instantly. So remember, while fresh ideas matter, yeah, you got to bring some new ideas, new content, new angles. The reality is the ideas that change the world don't need to be new every time. They need to be true every time.